Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Sheketoff. I'm the host of Melissa in the Morning on WICC. I also happen to be a parent and a Milford resident here, and this is so important to get to know the people that you are going to be potentially voting for when we get to election day. Obviously, early voting does start in just a couple of weeks, but if you are planning to go on general election day, November 4th, we want to make sure that you know who you are voting for. Your Board of Education is so important for you to know the members who are going to be on the Board of Ed, and I'm a proud partner with the Milford PTA Council for these Board of Education candidate conversations. So we are going to start with District 1, and we're starting with Mary Claire Edmonds, who is right over here, as well as Nicole Wilhelm, who is also here at the table. And I do want to make sure it's very clear that we did offer to all candidates in each district to come out. This was voluntary. Whoever wanted to be participating in this, we wanted to include them in the conversations, but want to make sure that you know that we on WICC and part of the PTA Council, we are not for any particular party. It's just whoever wanted to come out and introduce themselves to you. So with that being said, let's get started with just, first of all, meeting the candidates for District 1. So we're going to start with you, Mary Claire. First of all, talk a little bit about who you are and sort of your connection to Milford, why you'd even want to run for Board of Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Claire Edmonds, and I grew up in Milford, and now I'm living here with my 18-month-old daughter and my husband, Clint. Really excited to be running for the Board of Ed because I believe that it's important for us to focus on what really matters, which is creating a safe, positive learning environment for all of our kids. Professionally, I am Senior Manager of Program Innovation at Playworks, a national nonprofit that believes play brings out the best in every kid. And I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you for letting us share a little bit more about ourselves and our stories.
Absolutely. And you said 18 months?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are not sleep deprived. Absolutely not. That's incredible. Well, thank you for being here. And Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, you're obviously a Milford resident here, and why you wanted to be on the Board of Ed.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nicole Wilhelm. I am born and raised in Milford. I'm raising our 3 children alongside my husband, James, and our 2 rescue dogs. Having children in the Milford public school system, I've seen a lot of different changes and a lot of different things happen throughout the years, and I really feel like it's important for each kid to have the same education regardless of ability. My daughter has autism and she's in the autism program, so special education is really close to my heart, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running.
That's awesome. Well, we are definitely going to talk about special ed as well at some point here. I do want to start with just, in general, you're both parents. You both made that very clear. And you know, I'm gonna start with you actually, Nicole, and asking that question, especially because you have kids that are already in the district, and talk a little bit about what your priorities would be, not just for your own children, but obviously for their peers, for the Milford Public Schools.
Sure. I think it's important that we have strong academics and have a safe and supportive school system, and that we need to prepare every child, regardless of ability, for their future post-high school.
So when you say a safe and supportive school system, what do you feel like is working right now, but maybe some things you'd love to improve upon? Anything that's stood out to you over the years?
I think that it's great that they have counselors in the schools now. I think that's very helpful, especially post-COVID times. I feel like that really upped the need for those types of positions. But I do feel that this is a completely different topic, but our budget should be fully funded because there were teachers that were cut last year. Mm-hmm. And so some class sizes have gotten larger due to that. So I feel like that sort of affects that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely the budget is something that we got a lot of questions on, which, by the way, thank you to all of you who sent in questions, dozens of questions that came from Milford residents, so we really appreciate it. And definitely, Nicole, hold on to the budget. We're going to come back to that.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you now, Mary Claire, you know, what are some expectations that you have, especially with a young one who may not have started in the school district yet, but certainly I would think you and Clint have, you know, some, I would think, ideas of what you would like school to look like for your child. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I spend a lot of time thinking about the future for our kids And one of the things that's really concerning to me is how complex and competitive the job market is getting and will continue to get, especially due to new technologies like AI. Something that's really important to me is academics, but in addition, and maybe even more important, are the life skills that we're building for our kids, or that our kids are building through the school system. Things like communication and critical thinking, curiosity and adaptability, the kind of life skills that kids will take into whatever path they choose to go to later in life. I think it's our duty as hopefully on the Board of Education to create opportunities for kids from kindergarten through senior year of high school to be able to develop those skills and really focus on having hands-on opportunities to do that throughout their time.
So something that actually rolled out here in Connecticut this year, and I know it passed a couple of legislative sessions ago, don't quote me, but was financial literacy. You have to now take at least one course before you graduate from high school. And so when you talk about opportunities in the classroom and even just life skill building or even AI, what do you see, what does that look like for you if you were on the Board of Ed and really prioritizing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think financial literacy is incredibly important. At this point in the campaign, I think I've knocked down over 1,000 doors, and that comes up over and over and over again in different ways. Like, I want my kid to balance a checkbook. I want my kid to be able to use AI and learn how to use it so that they're prepared. I think two things. It's really important to focus on those hard skills of being able to do those things, but also, like I said before, like the ability to communicate with one another. I think that's critical and kind of weaves its way into all of the above.
And I want to go to something that you touched on before, Nicole, which was special education, something very near and dear to your heart. I actually have a brother who's on the autism spectrum as well, so we share that. Yes, I care a lot about that and how the district handles that. What is working, especially like you talk about your daughter maybe, and what has worked and where did we need maybe some improvement or more support when it comes to special ed?
I feel like as far as additional support, we could always use more paras. Like, from my understanding, we are short on that right now, that they are in desperate need, and we could always use more hands-on in the classroom, because the special ed teachers, I mean, they're wonderful and they have been great and they've supported my child and they support so many children, but I feel like they need more help.
And one thing that actually came up, this came from a teacher actually at the high school level here in Milford, who had said there's just not enough, to your point. We don't have enough paraprofessionals. Is that something that maybe that you would prioritize on the Board of Ed, which is that we not only need to bolster or have the support for teachers in general, but a bigger focus on the need for paraprofessionals, K through 12?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. I would definitely prioritize that.
Okay. And then as far as you had mentioned the budget before, Nicole, what, obviously we've had in Milford, this is very public news for anybody. We have struggled with the budget here in Milford.
Correct.
And obviously there are different takes on why and how we've gotten to this place. How do you address what has been an issue? We've heard a lot of times, Harborside Middle School, for example, constantly on the chopping block, it seems like, to your point earlier, people getting cut from their jobs. What do you do for that?
Well, I think it's important that we try to find a way to fully fund the budget the way the superintendent presents it versus going back and forth like they did, for example, last year. I feel like that would be number one. She asked for a very, what we call bare bones budget, where it was just like kind of maintaining where we were at. She didn't ask for very much in addition to that. And I think that's very important. And going further along, costs are only going to increase. So, I mean, we really need to find a middle ground where we can update our buildings or we can do the things necessary so our kids can continue to strive in a building that isn't falling apart. Our buildings are getting old. They're very aging. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that comes with the long-range term plan that we have been discussing.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about long range as well, which is something that is also a question that a lot of people have. And same question for you, Mary Claire. When we talk about the budget, what has been standing out to you, again, as just a Milford resident being here watching either, the live footage of the meetings, and especially how, I think one of the things that I've noticed as a Milford resident is that there seems to be a real disconnect between the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Ed. How do we also bridge that?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer the second question first, I think that it's really imperative that we have close relationships with the Board of Aldermen, and that as a board are communicating in a way that's nonpartisan. We're all working to do the best we can for Milford, and that's why we're all here, hopefully. And so that's really important to me, reaching across the aisle to do so. In terms of the budget itself, I would say that my priority would be to ensure that every single dollar we're spending is supporting the needs of our students and our teachers. I think that, so one of the things that I do in my work is partner with school districts all over the country. And that's given me insight to see some innovative and creative ways that other school districts have handled their budgets. And one of the things I would be interested in exploring here in Milford would be potentially looking at grant funding and collaborative partnerships to supplement what we get from taxpayer dollars and state and federal line items. I think that could be a really, with rising costs, like Nicole had said, they're only going up, and I think we need to be more creative and be more innovative as we look at our budget. And I have experience doing so. So I would be excited to explore that in Milford.
And I know we're still in the planning phase, if you will, of the long-range facilities plan, but what are your thoughts so far on how that is going and looking? I mean, some of the ideas on the table have certainly been discussed before. We've seen where we could be consolidating into one massive high school and eliminating one middle school to have two bigger middle schools, but there's a lot of ideas on the table. What for you is sticking, and what for you are you thinking, I don't know, not too sure about that?
I think that one of the things that stuck out for me has been that number. So last year in the facilities assessment, the cost that was presented to just keep our buildings running for the next 20 years is $500 million. And that is huge. And so I think that's what has stuck out to me, that for our existing buildings, that would be the cost over the next 20 years to keep them running and updated, and kind of like the bare minimum of what we would spend. I think that it's really important during this time to be proactive, because what we don't want is to have conversations like have happened in the past few years about Harborside, where it's kind of an immediate proposal that's happening, something that will affect kids right away. I think if the Board of Ed can be really proactive with these long-range plans, we can figure out what is the right thing for our students to get them the facilities they deserve, the safe, positive learning environments that they deserve, that our teachers deserve, in a proactive way, so that we are envisioning it into the future and being really thoughtful and data-driven about why we're making the decisions and when it will happen, so that it's not sneaking up on anyone, and that the community has an opportunity to participate in the discussion, because I think that's so important.
Thanks, Mary Claire, I appreciate it. And actually, Nicole, I would love to hear from your perspective. This is a question that, again, came from teachers, interestingly, that I had heard from. How is, especially because I would imagine, not to put an onus on you, but I would imagine that you work very closely with your school, especially with your daughter. Do you feel like there is I guess a lot of collaboration. Like, do you find, when you work with teachers, just from a parent standpoint, obviously from the Board of Ed, you'll have like a different role if you get elected, but how do you feel with collaborating with the superintendent, Board of Aldermen, having more of a collaborative effort so that it's not so, it feels like divided when we do get down to especially budget time?
I think it's important for us to all work together as a team, the aldermen, Board of Ed, the superintendent, because otherwise, we see what's happened in the past. It doesn't work. People are fighting, there are things that are happening that shouldn't necessarily be happening, and I feel like we need to make that reach and really try to work together regardless of ideas we may not all agree with.
I should have asked this beforehand, but I'll ask anyways. Do your kids have anything that they ever come home from school and they say, I wish this? Like, for example, I'll throw my kid under the bus, it's no problem. He comes home, and to your point earlier, you had mentioned how we have kind of buildings that really need a lot of TLC, an awful lot of money in it, but like air conditioning. That is something my son comes home sweating bullets, and he just would love to have air conditioning in all the classrooms. And I think, honey, if you only knew how much HVAC was. However, I digress. Are there things that maybe your kids ever bring up that they feel like they would love to see more of, or that they love a lot about Milford schools?
So my middle schooler, who's in 8th grade, he would love like a robotics team.
Oh, neat.
Like, he's really, really into that sort of stuff. And right now at the middle school level, they don't offer that as a club. And my youngest, who was in 6th grade, he would love sports to be offered in middle school, which right now we can't afford to offer that across all 3 middle schools.
So are those things that you think you'd want to bring to the Board of Ed?
I would love to suggest it. Obviously it wouldn't be my decision solely, but I think maybe in the long term, possibly it could happen.
Tell me, I'm going to kind of close with saying, I think you guys have both done a great job of sharing, why this clearly matters to you. But what makes you stand out? Obviously, there are other candidates who are running for District 1, but for you, Nicole, what makes you stand out? What would the Board of Ed benefit from having somebody like you serve on it?
I've been active in the schools throughout my children's since they've started kindergarten. I've been on the PTA boards. I've been room parent. I've volunteered for multiple events. I've been really, really involved in the schools, and I see how they work, and I see things that could be focused on that could be beneficial for everyone. So I feel like my experience in the school setting, I think that would set me apart.
Okay. And Mary Claire, what about you? What do you feel you bring to the Board of Ed if elected this year?
I think there are a few things. So we didn't really talk too much about our professional backgrounds, but prior to working at Playworks, I was director of program operations at Boys and Girls Club of Lancaster in Pennsylvania, and I oversaw operational supervision of 5 facilities serving more than 3,000 K-12 students every year. I think that experience gave me a really deep insight into the needs of K-12 students from that kind of high level. And I think the other thing that sets me apart is that I'm creative, I'm innovative, I'm willing to work with anyone who has our students' best interests at heart. I really feel like I want to bring some fresh energy and fresh perspective to the Board of Ed. I think they've been doing a great job, but I think, like I said before, I work with school districts all over the country, and I see what others are doing, and I'm really excited, especially with my daughter hopefully entering the schools in just a couple of years. I'm excited to bring some of those cool ideas here to Milford.
Can you preview any of them? You're like, no, that's why you elect me, right?
I think, and I don't know if I said this before, but I think that we have some really strong community organizations in our city, and there's already a lot of cool things going on. But I think that if the Board of Ed could work towards strengthening some of those partnerships, things that Nicole mentioned before about middle school sports or robotics, through collaborations, I think that we could really be strategic about using the resources we have in our city. And I always say that kids' lives don't end when the bell rings. I think that it's really important that we're looking at the whole child, and those opportunities, the arts, the sports, the STEM, I think those are all things that should be part of every kid's education. And I think that on the board, that would be one of my priorities, is like strengthening those collaborative partnerships with the community organizations in our city that have the capability and the staff, and figuring out how the district can work together with those organizations and continue to do great things.
Okay, so I'm off to a horrible start because I lied. I actually have one more question. Okay. What you just said really sparked actually something that stands out with both of you, which is how important is it to also include the parents in that collaboration, because we're living in a time right now where parents a lot of the time either get mixed messages, whether that's coming from Washington, maybe it's coming from state politics, or maybe it's just coming from TikTok. I mean, wherever it's coming from, I think parents do have a fear in some regard, understandably so, where they don't feel like they are part of the equation, and they should be. I mean, these are their kids. So how do you also include parents in that formula?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, transparency is so important, but beyond that, including parents in the discussion, like you said. I know that the board has done a pretty good job of hosting community conversations over the last couple of years. And I think that should continue and be more than just about the long-range facilities plan. I think parents should have a voice in everything. And one of the things that I've really loved about door knocking has been being able to give out my email and say, like, please, I really enjoyed this conversation. I would love to continue going and continue chatting. There are so many parents who have great ideas and who are already contributing to our schools and our community. And I think the more we can include parents in the equation, like you said, the stronger that our school system will be.
All right. And Nicole, what about you? How do you include parents in the equation?
Well, I think that to go off what Mary Claire just said, I think that we need to have more of these community building events, whether it's about the long-term range plans or whatever. We should have it just twice a year, just so we can connect with the teachers and different things that are going on. I mean, every school has an open house, so that already happens, but that's very short. That's, you have a few minutes in each classroom. I feel like we need a little more than that. So I'd like to see something in addition to that happen.
Well, I want to thank you both for volunteering your time to come out here to speak and just connect a little bit more with our viewers. And I wish you both luck on November 4th. I do want to remind folks, early voting does start October 20th. It is at Parsons Complex. And again, Election Day is on November 4th. But I want to thank you both, Nicole, Mary Claire. I wish you both luck in the upcoming election, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, to our audience, I want to make sure that you guys know that you can obviously go back, watch all of this. It will also be on social media. Please be sure to share this with friends, family, everybody, because again, we want to make sure you are showing up and that you know the people who are representing you here in Milford. Thank you so much for joining us, District 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.